Daniel Ketch, Ghost Rider Origin Explored. After the popular series back in the 1960s, fans were waiting for the rebooting of this brutal and deadly character, the Ghost Rider. Marvel didn't disappoint the fans. After its reboot and release in the 1990s, i.e. Ghost Rider Volume 3, among the other popular and known anti-heroes of the Marvel Comics, Ghost Rider, in its new form, variation, and avatar, gained new prominence among its readers and fans. The origin story of this Ghost Rider, aka Daniel, Danny Ketch, has a role in it. Exploring, explaining, and uncovering the origin of this character, Ghost Rider, through the persona of Daniel Danny Ketch, could be very rewarding for readers and fans of this series and Marvel Comics overall. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Backstory of Daniel Ketch, aka Ghost Rider. We can trace this character and story arc back to the Western genre, which is in its comic form from the early 20th century. Regarding the backstory of the Ghost Rider, aka Daniel Danny Ketch, in this series, it is more about making it modern and accurate and giving it a sense of psychological depth, unlike the previous ones. In the last series and the story, the character is a fusion of fantasy and myth. The most famous story of the Ghost Rider series, Johnny Blaze, is a tale about sin and redemption, revenge, and satisfaction. Johnny Blaze works as a stuntman and is in the profession after his real father. Barton Blaze, Johnny's real father, is a well-known, celebrated stuntman who worked for one of the country's most popular and famed stunt shows, Crash Simpson's Daredevil Cycle Show, owned by Craig Simpson. But Johnny's father died accidentally in a stunt, leaving Johnny to live alone with the family of Craig Simpson, the owner of the stunt show. Then comes the other tragedy when Johnny needs to save his surrogate father Crash Simpson's life, who is suffering from cancer. In desperation, without any options, Johnny looks in the religious cults and occults for any solution. There, he meets a soul consumer, a demon, the Hell person, Mephisto. He agrees to exchange his soul for Mephisto in return for saving his surrogate father's life. Mephisto, being the devil, banished Blaze with the other form of demon, which is Zarathos, who, for years, was held captive by Mephisto for being a rival. This produces the deadly form of human and supernatural phenomena meshed together. The Ghost Rider, the Spirit of Vengeance. Meanwhile, in this material, the writers and creators have played with our sense of who was and is a Ghost Rider. In respect to his backstory and origins, how can it be different, more vigilant, and more modern compared to the previous series, especially the popular one of Johnny Blazer? This is not to say that they have completely done away with the source material or the generic and narrative tropes like fantasy or myth. Instead, the mixture of the elements of the previous character, the archetype, the generic and narrative elements, with a new contemporary, modern, and real sense of life gives it a full dimension that the fans and readers could enjoy. Instead of the bond between the father and child in Johnny Blaze's story, here Daniel Danny Ketch's emotional life gets a new perspective, a new psychological depth. We see a simple story of siblings in the midst of a crisis in this story. It acts as the beginning for this issue of the comic series. It sets out the story, the tone, character arc. In the first issue, Ghost Rider Volume 3, Number 1, it gets clear why and how Ketch becomes what he becomes and what he needs to do. From the beginning of the very first issue, we get straight into the narrative. Ketch and his sister Barbara secretly visit a graveyard, which could be dangerous for both of them, as Ketch reminds her sister of the danger that can happen there. She insists on going, as she is interested in exploring what is there. What comes next is going to change their whole lives, especially Ketch's. After a minor prank by some young people, who will be very important in the later narrative, Ketch and Barbara discover two groups are fighting, and she somehow attracts attention towards her. The groups, who are the deadliest men of Kingpin and Deathwatch, Deathwatch himself being present at the fight, fighting over an important briefcase, are now worried to see Barbara and want to eliminate her, as they don't want any third person watching or knowing about their activity. Quickly it becomes about killing Barbara and Ketch. Somehow, after a first hard blow at Barbara, Ketch saves her and takes her at a distance. While the men try to blow off the entire area with a grenade, at that very moment, Ketch somehow manages to emit a radiant fire and beam of light. There is a huge explosion, but not of the grenade, but of a figure with a motorcycle and a burning skeleton. This is how Ghost Rider appears for the first time with his iconic dialogue. I am vengeance. I have the spirit of vengeance. Now, let me go a little back in time. What happened was that when he took Barbara to a distance from the area of fighting, he discovered an unusual motorcycle in the middle of nowhere. He was not thoughtful of what it was, but somehow he connected to the motorcycle. With the split blood of Barbara in his hands, he touched the bike and boom, he transformed into the spirit of vengeance, the Ghost Rider. One more interesting thing to look at here is the double egos of the anti-hero Marvel character Ghost Rider and the persona Daniel Danny Ketch. Ketch, without realizing what is happening, is seeking revenge in the name of all the innocent blood that has suffered. In this comic, it is shown by the third-person narrative voice and dialogue devoid of subjective voice in the case of the Ghost Rider, while we see the subjective voice and dialogue of the confused persona of Danny Ketch. This narrative device also helps to establish the double ego. While in the previous case of Johnny Blazer, it was already clear to him how he becomes the Ghost Rider, whether he accepts supernatural phenomena or not is a different issue. Here, the point is still to be understood by Daniel Ketch himself and for the readers of the series. While the writers and creators provide a chilling origin for this series' main character, Ghost Rider, they leave room for puzzles for both characters inside the story and readers outside. Marvelous story arc of Daniel Ketch. While I have outlined the origin story of Daniel Ketch, aka Ghost Rider, it is vital to understand the story arc of the character Daniel Danny Ketch. It's from his distant relative through his mother's side, a relative named Noble Ketch, that he got his powers and abilities to fight and take vengeance whenever it's necessary. It was written for him, as somewhat later in the story, we will see Johnny Blaze and Ketch are also distant siblings, but Ketch has to find his powers through his own means. We know that Ketch got his powers in a needed moment of personal crisis, and then the spirits of vengeance swallowed his personal ego, creating alter egos. It's a challenge to him to protect and take vengeance while keeping his sanity. But later, Ketch, however, lost his sister to a blackout, who was hired by Deathwatch to finish and kill Ketch. In the midst of this, Jonathan Blazer comes to New York when he hears of the other Ghost Rider, which is Ketch. Blazer misunderstands him first and tries to kill Ketch, but after a point, they realize they both are the spirit of vengeance, trying to finish the demon and fight with every other supernatural phenomenon related to Blackheart, Mephisto, Necrosis, and other demons. While there are time periods when Ghost Rider worked with Spider-Man, Wolverine, etc. in the absence of Fantastic Four, character and story development was always done through other means. Finally, like the spirit of vengeance, there is a spirit of corruption which was unusually possessed by Ketch after losing out to Necrosis. An armed warrior way more powerful than the spirit of vengeance, Danny Ketch now has the ability to go against his own alter ego. With this transformation of the story arc of his persona, Daniel Danny Ketch, aka Ghost Rider, becomes a more fruitful tale of anti-heroes and vengeance going through an emotional crisis in this comic series. Daniel Ketch, aka Ghost Rider's abilities and powers explained. Understanding the power and abilities of Daniel Ketch, also known as Ghost Rider, is essential to fully grasp his character arc, origin story, and his methods of fighting and taking vengeance. In the first issue, Ghost Rider Volume 3 Number 1, we witness the first instance of one of his powers, Hellfire. The supernatural fire emanating from his motorcycle when Ketch starts it is Hellfire. It startles enemies, creating a field of luminance and brightness that blinds and disorients them. During the initial fight in this issue, Deathwatch's men are unable to comprehend what is happening as Ghost Rider unleashes Hellfire with his iconic shout. This immense power heralds his arrival in battle. Another power displayed early on is the Pennant Stare, where Ghost Rider shoots a beam of fire from his eyes, directly attacking his enemies. This ability is evident in the first issue, particularly during the aforementioned fight scene. Similarly, his Burning Touch power is introduced, where his touch ignites and burns the skin of his enemies. Ghost Rider's supernatural combat skills are prominently featured at the end of the first issue, when he tries to save a group of boys and girls from the men working for both Kingpin and Deathwatch. He attacks them using his signature chain, displaying his formidable combat prowess. In the same fight, or in later issues, number 6 to 7, another of his powers, the Blight Blade projection, comes into play. This power is incredibly lethal, as it causes his enemies to be consumed by their own dishonest and immoral deeds, leaving them as little more than lumps of their former selves. Another characteristic and signature power of Ghost Rider is his Hell Cycle, which he frequently uses to counter enemies. The Hell Cycle is emblematic of a character who possesses numerous regenerative, supernatural, and superhuman abilities, powers that are far more dangerous than those typically wielded by supervillains. After being possessed by the spirits of corruption, Ghost Rider also gains additional supernatural powers, including a larger body with giant armor, and the natural ability to confront and merge with his own spirit of vengeance, thus consolidating even more power within a single body. His superhuman strength and durability are particularly evident in battles against opponents like Wolverine, or when he withstands bullets from far more deadly adversaries. Ghost Rider's other strengths, powers, and abilities include skilled hand-to-hand combat, which is apparent from the very first issue, and his heightened awareness of his senses, allowing him to stay one step ahead of his enemies. One of Ghost Rider's most important abilities is his skillful motorcycle driving, a crucial aspect of the character. Without this, much of what Ghost Rider accomplishes would be impossible. This skill is showcased in the first issue when an anxious Daniel Ketch, after discovering his powers, uses his motorcycle to evade the New York City police in such a way that they have no idea where he will go next. These powers and abilities illustrate how Daniel Ketch, aka Ghost Rider, operates and how he maintains such overwhelming authority over his enemies. Daniel Ketch's Ghost Rider arsenal. Fans of this character and series love to refer to this as the paraphernalia of the Ghost Rider, his own stock of carefully curated things and tools. In his arsenal, there are two things. One is a weapon and the other is transportation. As mentioned above, his powers and abilities are not disconnected from his character. To be an iconic character, the power must be aligned with the character's persona. Here, motorbike transportation comes into play, discussed in the scene at the above point, as a significant part of the personal arsenal. This helps him to go up at any time, anywhere, through any kind of movement or action with his beloved motorcycle. The other main function of his transportation is his deadly exhibition of power, Hellfire, one of his main powers which gives him superhuman strength and abilities. The other important item in his arsenal is the Blight Blade, a deadly weapon introduced in his later phase when he is possessed by the spirit of corruption. The Blight Blade allows him to project a blade that upon striking an enemy causes them to be consumed by every unethical deed they have ever committed, ultimately reducing them to sludge or mud. With these weapons and his transportation, Ghost Rider becomes a superhuman force, wielding supernatural abilities and other means of exacting vengeance. The mind-blowing appearance of Daniel Ketch in other forms of media. Daniel Ketch, aka Ghost Rider, in other media inevitably brings to mind Nicolas Cage's dramatic portrayal of Johnny Blaze's story in the Ghost Rider films. However, this character and series have appeared in various other media, such as video games, television, and merchandising. Traces of Ghost Rider can be found in the X-Men animated series, where the character Gambit has a vision featuring Ghost Rider. He also appears in the animated Fantastic Four series in one episode of which Ghost Rider makes an appearance. Additionally, Ghost Rider features in the animated movie The Incredible Hulk. One of the most intriguing instances was the planned Ghost Rider show by UPN, though it is currently on hiatus. As for video games, Ghost Rider appears in Marvel Ultimate Alliance and Spider-Man and Venom Maximum Carnage. Marvelous Verdict. Exploring the origin story and narrative of Daniel "Danny" Ketch as Ghost Rider sheds light on many aspects of the character, the series, and Marvel Comics as a whole. While fans love the character and his origin, there is still much to uncover to fully understand the character, the story, and the entirety of the series. We hope this video provides excitement and thrills for fans and readers, encouraging them to explore the entire series and perhaps even demand a media adaptation of this character. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.